Hey everyone. Warnings against pride are everywhere along the path of a follower of Christ. It's something we're constantly reminded to guard against. But what do we actually mean when we talk about pride? Most of us, when we think of pride, imagine someone who refuses to budge, someone set in their ways, unwilling to admit their flaws, and sometimes even harming themselves or those around them as a result. But is that the only form of pride? Merriam-Webster defines pride in two ways: too high an opinion of one's own ability or worth, a feeling of being better than others; a reasonable and justifiable sense of one's own worth, a form of self-respect. It's so important to make a distinction between these two definitions because one is necessary and the other is very destructive. Let's start with the second definition, self-respect. We all understand the importance of taking care of ourselves, setting boundaries, and knowing what we will and will not tolerate in our lives. This isn't arrogance, it's wisdom. Even Christ emphasized the need for love and respect, both for God and for ourselves. In Matthew 22, verses 37 through 39, he says, "Loving God with all our heart, soul, and mind naturally leads to a healthy love for ourselves. And when we have that, it overflows into how we treat others." Now, let's talk about the first definition, pride rooted in ego. This is the kind of pride that God warns us about. Proverbs 6, verses 16 through 19 gives us a sobering list of things the Lord hates, and pride is right at the top. A proud look, a lying tongue, a heart that devises wicked imaginations, feet that run toward mischief, a false witness who spreads lies, one who sows discord. Pride doesn't always look like arrogance. Sometimes it hides deep within us as entitlement, defensiveness, or even victimhood. If we find ourselves justifying wrong actions to protect our image or way of life, pride is at work. Jesus knew how dangerous pride could be, which is why he often spoke about humility and surrender. In Matthew 10, verses 35 through 38, he says, "These verses remind us that pride can take many forms: the pride of family, of status, of life itself. And yet, Christ calls us to love him above all else. When we do that, pride loses its grip." So, how do we fight pride? We surrender. We die to ourselves daily. We choose humility over ego, love over self-importance, and truth over our personal comfort. Yes, this can feel scary. We've been taught to fight for our own needs, to put ourselves first. But Christ offers us a different path, a path that leads to true peace and alignment with the Most High. Pride is sneaky, but God gives us everything we need to recognize and overcome it. If this message spoke to you today, take a moment to reflect. Ask God to reveal any areas where pride may be holding you back. Nearly every day, I hit up YouTube convinced that this time I will be in full control of what goes into my brain. But YouTube thinks it knows me better than I know myself. And some days when I open it up, it offers me 10 times the amount of whatever I watched the day before. For instance, let's say I get curious about tornado weather. It's not even a thing where I live, but hey, I like learning about stuff. The next thing I know, the most popular tornado forecaster and all the copycats are dominating my recommendations. And I know if I don't deliberately search for something different tomorrow, I'll be in tornado country all week. Some days I just sit back, look at all the thumbnails and think, we live in a mighty scary world. And if my paranoia filter is fully engaged, YouTube starts looking like a portal to a zombie nation. Zombies at the border, zombies at the controls, zombies at my door. The whole world looking like there's no one in the driver's seat. We're in a handbasket going straight off a cliff, and at the bottom, there's an AI bot just waiting to suck the life out of my entire soul. So I try to reset, watch something uplifting, but deep down, I know I'm just fooling myself. I honestly think this investment in fear started a long time ago with network television news. Once media companies realized that fear puts people in their seats, it became their number one strategy. And I personally avoid it like the plague. But every once in a while, I overhear it in a waiting room or some other place I really don't want to be, and instantly my stomach's in knots. Am I just highly susceptible to suggestion, or do I see the manipulation for what it is? Either way, fear has a way of finding an opening. If I'm tired, hungry, or frustrated, it's even easier for it to take hold. And that's when I remembered something from The Matrix. When Morpheus teleports away, a drunk man lying nearby sees it and gets genuinely afraid. And suddenly, Agent Smith knows exactly where they are. It hit me. Smith could detect fear, even from afar, and once fear took hold, he could establish control. And isn't that exactly how the adversary works? He casts doubt, anxiety, fear, until we lose control of our own minds, or worse, sabotage ourselves. But Proverbs 12:25 reminds us, heaviness in the heart of man maketh it stoop, but a good word maketh it glad. A good word, that is, positivity, encouragement, and mindfulness in what we consume, makes the difference between a fearful heart and one filled with courage. And let me tell you, we need courage. Courage makes the good times sweeter and the tough times bearable. It lets us stare down our trials and watch them leave as easily as they arrived. Fear? Fear prolongs misery and steals our destiny, and too often it wins. But only if we let it. So how do we stop fear before it takes over? Watch your thoughts. That random negative thought, it may not be random at all. Recognize fear's disguises. A valid concern is one thing, but envisioning total destruction is fear at work. Pay attention to unexplainable discomfort, anxiety, unease. Sometimes something evil has its sights on you. Interrupt it immediately. You can pray. Thank God for your health, your mind. List everything you're grateful for and watch courage rise, because no one puts it better than Timothy in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. We've been given authority over fear, and it's time to use it. So tell me, how do you stop fear before it takes hold? Let's talk in the comments. And if this spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and share. Share this with someone who needs a good word today.